Hi, Albert. Hey, Michelle. Okay, cool. I guess everyone is here. So hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Thanks so much for joining us live today. My name is Luca. I'm the head of marketing here at DOKKA AI. I'm joined today by my colleague, Eric Edelstein, the co-founder at DOKKA, and he'll be presenting today's topic alongside our friends from Voneus Broadband. So we have here Craig Brass, systems architect, and Debbie Stevens, the accounts payable clerk. So between the two of them, you'll get two very important sides of the story. This leads me to my next point, which is at any point during the webinar, you can ask questions. So just use the questions tool. We'll answer some of them in real time and some in the Q&A section of the webinar. Today, we're going to spend the majority of our time talking to Craig and Debbie. Eric is going to lead that conversation, and he's going to uncover basically how Voneus is future-proofing their AP with DOKKA and all the valuable lessons they learned along the way. And then Daniel, our director of partnerships, is going to briefly demo some of the DOKKA features live, and then we'll save some 5 minutes for Q&A in the end. And of course, we do have a special offer for you guys today, so make sure to stick around to the end to claim it. With that, Eric, the mic is yours.
Great, thank you very much, Luca. And I guess a special welcome to Craig and Debbie. Thank you for spending some time with us today. We really appreciate that you're taking the time to chat with us about your experiences with DOKKA over the last year. So I think to start off the conversation, it'd be really good for people to get to know a little bit about your backgrounds. Tell us a little bit about how long you've worked in the company for and what you actually do for Voneus.
I'll just start there if you don't mind, Debbie. So for those of you who haven't come across what we actually do, we're a supplier of super and ultra fast broadband in the UK using our own infrastructure via fixed wireless and as well as fiber to the premise that we're deploying ourselves. We're both the infrastructure owner as well as the retail provider, so we're fully vertically integrated that way. So that's what Voneus Broadband does. I've been with the company about 2.5 years now. I came from an acquisition, so my company provided similar services and acquired us about 2.5 years ago. And I moved into a role integrating future acquisitions as well as leading systems architecture, which is where my role into this project and as well as other systems comes from. I'll hand over to Debbie, because Debbie's been here a bit longer than I have.
Not that long, but 3.5 years I've been with the company.
Oh, okay.
And yeah. So, and I deal with the invoices on the payable side. So receiving invoices in and getting them paid and getting them approved. That's basically my job, and also doing the payroll side of things. No, that's my job.
Okay, and maybe something interesting about both of you, like what's your favorite hobby or something you enjoy doing outside of work?
Oh, there's loads of things I enjoy doing. I mean, I like going out socializing, etc. It's yeah, that's a good point. You know what I mean? But no, I worked in fashion years ago, so I do like sort of like, you know, anything creative. I do a lot of knitting because I went to art college, etc. And yeah, I still sell quite a few things, but that's mainly what I do. Yeah, anything creative. That's quite unusual being in finance.
You, Craig, is your life all systems architect, or is there something outside of work?
I spend an awful lot of time. I spend an awful lot of time working. I'm one of these people who actually enjoys working. So, but all the sort of something interesting outside work. The latest thing in the summer just gone has been a friend of mine has bought a jet ski, which I've been on a few times.
Oh, excellent.
I'm currently in the market now for buying a jet ski for this summer. So that's my new. That's going to become my new hobby. Having played on my friend's one, so that's sort of combined with something interesting and something I've decided I now like doing. So a fan of the water.
A lot of fun. That sounds fun, but dangerous at the same time.
Yeah. Well, the joke in the joke in the company from my boss actually was I'm not allowed to buy one until I finish the implementation of. We're implementing Salesforce at the moment for the customer administration side, and I'm not allowed to buy or use one until that implementation date has come in on April 1st. Just as it might be a risk to the project, shall we say? But there you go. Anyway.
So we were chatting a little bit earlier. It sounds like you've got a number of different offices around the UK. But what's really interesting is that, I don't know if it's before COVID or since COVID, it sounds like a lot of your office is remote. So tell me a little bit about the structure of both your company, like how many people in it, and also specifically your finance team, like how big is your team, and what type of different roles are there in the team?
So do you want to go first with the finance team, Debbie? And
the finance team is was it 3, 6? We got about 8 people, 8 people in the finance team. We've got the analyst side, we've got the payable side, credit control, and Zam and Emily. Yeah, we all do different parts. I mean, obviously, I know my part. But to tell you the truth, it's like when they do the analyst part, that's more sort of like after, more for month end and the cost controls side of things. Is that right? I think Craig would know a lot more about that one.
So
yeah.
Just to touch a bit further on that, with regards to sort of total employees, I think we've got about
140 people now. Yeah, yeah, and most people work around the country. Yeah.
Yeah, and so as I say, we've got 4 offices now.
Yeah.
Southgate's our head office, just on the outskirts of London. And to be honest, about half of our staff work from home. The remaining half work in one of the offices around the country. As regards finance, slightly unusual compared to most operations in that the customer side billing is actually dealt with by the other dealt with under the chief commercial officer. So that's entirely separate from the actual general ledger and finance in the finance team. So there's actually technically more people working on financial sides, but it's just that it's held within the customer administration of the CCO. So yeah, as I say, the purchasing side is the team of 8. You could probably add another 5 people to that if you look at the other side of the business as well.
And now you've been using DOKKA for just under a year, is that correct?
Yeah. So I think it was April.
Yeah, 1st of April it came into.
1st of April. Yeah. We spent a couple of. I think we spent. We decided to go with it a couple of months before that, and I think we took a couple of weeks of implementation before that, and then put out an instruction guide of what's going to come to the users, and we went live on the 1st of April, which is exactly a year after we went live on NetSuite, because we moved on to NetSuite in April 21.
Okay, so let's now take a look. Let's take a step back in history, and before you even considered DOKKA, or even probably the time when you had just started implementing NetSuite, what were the challenges you were facing before you actually started thinking about automating the system?
Debbie, you explain.
Yeah, I can explain that one. There was a few, teething issues, etc. when you start using a new system, etc. It was, the good thing about NetSuite, because we came from Cashflow, onto NetSuite, we can actually keep the documents, etc., the invoices we could download into the boxes, etc., and that's something we couldn't do with Cashflow. So we obviously keep in loads of invoices in folders, etc. That's the difference of having DOKKA. Everything's like on file. There was a few sort of like teething issues, etc., and navigating around NetSuite, but it took a while to actually sort of like learn it. It wasn't like DOKKA in the way that, we got on with it within sort of like by the end of the week, we got used to it. Yeah, but it's made a difference. Let's put it that way. Sorry.
More in terms of how we used to get invoices approved, what you used to do.
Oh, what I used to do, I had to sort of get them all together and put them all out on an email as an attachment and ask people to approve them. And then by the end of the week, I might actually get an approval back, or they could sign them, scan them back, and so I had a signature on the invoices, etc. I mean, it was time consuming, etc. Do you know what I mean? So, but yeah, is that
And
anyone?
Before you started using DOKKA, were most of the documents still coming in by email? Were you printing them out? Did you have LibreArch files? Did you have some sort of folders that you kept them in? Did people bring shoe boxes to you? What did that situation look like?
Shoe boxes, yes. Yeah, we had loads of files. I mean, there's still loads of paperwork because what I do is I file everything that gets paid each month within the brown bags. So we actually have documents, etc. You know what I mean? Going back quite a few years now. I mean, but yeah, there was it was just creating loads of paperwork, etc. I mean, it's killing the forests. It really was.
And so, Craig, then at some stage, like you implemented NetSuite and you started realizing that NetSuite obviously didn't cater for all the automation requirements that you needed. And so you started thinking about it. So what were you starting to think about when you were considering automation?
So we at the time, our head of finance, Kim Mansfield, he was our head of finance, and me and him worked really closely when we implemented NetSuite, and we'd started talking very quickly afterwards that we need a better way of, within months of NetSuite, we were still saying the one thing that NetSuite isn't doing for us is sorting this approval system out, and we basically started looking into what we could do about that. And our initial thought was, well, what can NetSuite do for us? And we quickly realized that the only way we could realistically do it inside NetSuite would be if we licensed every single user in the company to NetSuite. And considering the cost of user licensing, that wasn't going to be practical. Plus, there's the training aspect on NetSuite, and it's not the simplest solution to use. It does have a lot of good features, don't get me wrong, but it's not the simplest thing to get your head around. It took me a while because NetSuite was new to me when I implemented it. So we thought, right, what can we do here? And we'd done a little bit of research. We'd found a couple of tools, but to be honest, other projects had started taking off at the same time. So it was something that just, we were just on and off looking at. And then Kim put something on LinkedIn, just explaining the issues that we were having, because obviously, we needed something, and none of the solutions we'd sort of looked at were kind of exactly what we wanted, really, especially with regards to, not just invoice approval, but connection with purchase orders and stuff like that. And the other issue we were having, which is nothing to do with your system, but your system has actually solved it, is NetSuite is really slow at loading pages. So we were spending, the account, the Debbie and Mary and accounts were spending absolutely ages going between pages inside NetSuite just to load documents.
Yeah, I forgot about the speed part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah, headache.
And so Kim had posted both of those things, and I think it was either somebody who used DOKKA or one of your staff had replied to him and just said, you should have a look at DOKKA. So we did, and we very quickly had a demo. I think within a few days, you guys had demoed it to us. We brought Mary and Debbie into it, and we were like, yeah, that looks fine.
Yeah.
And I still want to unpack a little bit more about the challenges. So a lot of the time when people are trying to automate, they're starting to think about the virtual office, about trying to get rid of all the paperwork. But it sounds to me like, Debbie, you're saying that you still have a number of LibreArch files. Were you, before you actually started using DOKKA, were you thinking about a paperless office, or is that a pipe dream? Is that something you were considering?
It was a pipe dream. I mean, it was like we were hoping to get paperless. I mean, obviously you still see a bit of paper here, but it was But with NetSuite, we had to print out all the invoices in order to get them paid until we can actually sort of like sort out the back system, etc. So we were paying in a different way. So Kim was doing daily payments, etc., and he wouldn't actually pay unless I had the invoice in front of him and it was signed by somebody, and then we can file it away, which made it awkward in a way because if nobody was in the office, was getting it signed, etc., sending out emails, and it was time consuming, but in a slow process.
Just going
Yeah.
back, just
Yeah.
going back a step there on that. At pretty much the same time as we implemented DOKKA, what we also implemented was using BACS files to actually make
Yeah.
payments to suppliers. Because previously, what Kim used to have to do is he used to have to log on to online banking and add each payment to each supplier. And do that all manually, and he used to do that based on a tray that Debbie had printed out with all the signatures from the staff members who'd approved the payment. And then he would do that. So at the same time as DOKKA, we also implemented the BACS payment file, where it would create a batch inside NetSuite. We'd download the file and upload it straight to our bank to make payments. So we combined a few process changes to get rid of the paperwork, because then we didn't need the paperwork, and we now don't print anything out. No,
we don't print out any invoices anymore.
And just you know, just to give you a comparison, obviously when I came into Voneus, I felt that you know, considering I've been running a paperless office, I mean, we were a smaller company, we used Xero, and we PDF'd every single invoice and attached it to the actual document. I've been doing that since about 2012 when I started my company. So when we sold to Voneus, literally it was a box about sort of yay size. It was the entire records of the company, because everything else was digital. So there was nothing to hand over other than this box of some physical documents, but no invoices because they were all attached. So when I came over to Voneus, it was like, oh, right, we're still working in paper.
It's going back in time.
So let me understand. So you were on cash flow, you moved over to NetSuite, you realized that there were a couple of challenges, you were frustrated about certain things, you were looking to actually try and improve the process. DOKKA, at that stage, you started having discussions with us, but you were looking at other solutions at the same time. And so it's really interesting to find out from you, why did you actually decide to go with DOKKA? What were the pros you either liked about DOKKA, or what were the things that you didn't like about the other systems? What were you looking for? Like, I guess a SWOT analysis or something along that line.
So the big thing with the other systems was I couldn't tell you the names of them, to be honest, but there was one of them that we trialed that didn't support the integration of purchase orders. So matching up the purchase, all it was an invoice payment approval system, which was really basic for what we wanted. We wanted something that, because we were about to implement warehouse management and the full purchase order cycle, we knew we couldn't work on something as rudimentary as that. We found other systems that were saying, oh, well, we don't support NetSuite yet, but we're going to in the future. And it's like, well, we need something now. There was one system that came close, but I think the tipping factor with regards to your system was just drawing the lines between the transactional fields. It was I think you call it machine learning.
Yeah, the drag and drop machine learning element, absolutely.
Exactly. So you could just grab and drop, and it learns who, you know, if something's coming from a particular supplier for a particular thing, it'll learn that goes to that person for approval. Yeah. So it'll learn who things are going to. So all you need to do is basically have a quick look over something. Yeah, that looks all right. You know, it's matched up all the fields because of the machine learning on where all the fields are on a particular supplier's invoice. And all you're doing is a quick, I think, am I right in saying you just basically have a quick look over something in some cases, Debbie, because it's got everything in there, and then send it out for approval, and it's just so much time, it's so time saving. And the other thing about that is the fact that, you know, I said how slow NetSuite is at doing things, because we're doing the majority of things inside DOKKA. I know this isn't a feature of your system, but indirectly what it's done is saved us so much time, because we're basically not using the NetSuite system as much. Debbie and Mary spend most of their time inside DOKKA, so
Yeah,
it's
we do.
saving them having to sit and wait on NetSuite loading. It's an indirect advantage, should we say?
It has sped up the process. It really has. She's
So
good.
now so you looked at the different players in the market, you assessed them, you looked at the pros and cons, you decided you were going to go with DOKKA, and now you mentioned you have a CFO in the company earlier. Did you need to get the CFO to sign off, or how did you get the management to buy into actually transforming the actual way your finance team operates?
The way we sold it was well. I mean, to be fair, when we actually implemented it, we were actually just in the process of a transition between one CFO and another anyway. So it was less of a buy-in from CFO and more of it was more of a decision that I made with Kim, who was the head of finance, and the main reason we decided that we could just get on with this basically was the fact that I don't know if you do this now, but there wasn't a contract in place. So we didn't have to commit to a couple of years or 3 years of a contract. It was literally a month to month. As I say, I don't know if you do that now.
Yeah, DOKKA still does that. We don't require commitments. It's still month to month, and if people aren't happy, absolutely.
This is the thing. We really liked that because we thought, well, okay, well, if it works, absolutely brilliant. We've got a solution that meets our requirements. It's about, the pricing's right, the features are right, and if it doesn't work, then well, all right, we just cancel and we've lost a month or two basically. That was our philosophy on it. An unusual philosophy, but certainly one that we took the decision that was what we were going to do, and to be honest, we're a year later and we're still using it, and no plans to change otherwise because it's transforming our business.
That's been good. I mean, Kim was excited about it, wasn't he? He was like, "Yes, that's it. We're having this one." And it's
yeah, it takes a lot. It takes a lot. Kim doesn't usually get excited about software. Kim gets excited about a lot of things, but software isn't one of them.
It's like, that's so good.
I haven't seen too many senior people. No, maybe. What were your expectations now that you decided to use DOKKA and you've started to use it? What were the expectations? And I guess more based on your experience now a year later, have your expectations of DOKKA been exceeded, or how do you summarize the usage of it over the last year?
I'm one of these people that I just I learn new things in things. I mean, it's like it's like the little blue lines, when you're sort of like taking stuff out. I didn't realize the boxes open up and you can actually tick them, and I found that out by accident. There's a lot of things I do, especially in NetSuite, because we didn't really have that much training, and it's just like I like finding new things, but it's been. Yeah, I mean, it's challenging with the POs, etc. But we've got over that. As long as it's compatible in NetSuite, then it does publish across. But other than that, no, it's been absolutely fantastic. I won't look back now. I can't actually just deal with NetSuite by itself. I have to do everything in DOKKA. I really do.
The thing about it is that what we've found is literally the only training that really happened with DOKKA, certainly for the end user training for the people approving the invoices, was literally an email with a few screenshots on it where I was like, do this, do that, and do that. The users have absolutely no problems using it, and they find it so easy to use.
It is.
That they just click approve, job done. As regards Debbie and Mary, well, basically we sat on a little training session with was it Daniela? I think her name was.
That was it. Yeah, Daniela. Yeah,
Daniela from DOKKA, and we sat on a bit of a training session with her, and literally just everybody picked it up so quickly in terms of approving it, in terms of creating the invoices and setting up, etc. So I would say, in terms of how well I thought it was going to work, I was pretty confident that it was going to work quite well. It certainly exceeded what I thought it would achieve in the business. It's just worked so well.
So we've got this onboarding process where we try get new customers to go from not knowing DOKKA to become power users very quickly. It sounds to me like you are absolutely power users. and that you're trying to use every part of the Docker platform. How long do you think it actually took you from the time you started using Docker to maybe not to be a power user, but to feel comfortable with it? Was it weeks? Was it months? How long did it take you to actually get on that side?
About a day, day and a half.
A day and a half?
Oh, yeah, day,
Really?
yeah. To get, you know what I mean? Once the invoices got downloaded, we scanned them in, they went onto the Docker, and straight away, really, basically, you know. So by the end of the week, it was like we'd got so used to it. It was just like been part of the, you know what I mean? Felt like we'd had it for a year, you know. No, it's that easy to actually use. It's really easy.
I think that's the sign of a good system, because I mean,
Yeah.
My background involves architecture in a lot of software as well. I mean, at my old company, we built an entire customer management system, so you can tell my background of doing these things. I always think if something isn't obvious to use in the software, it hasn't been designed well. That's certainly something with regards to Docker. I can certainly you can find your way around it without ever having read a manual, and I think that's it shows good software. Basically, you shouldn't have to read a manual to do the basic things in a piece of software, and you certainly don't in Docker.
And now one of the things that we've really tried hard with Docker to do is to change the way the finance teams, not only the finance teams, the entire company operates. Do you feel like your communication has changed since using Docker? The way the team speaks to one another, maybe through our chat function or the approval flows, or the greater team out in those offices that you mentioned? How has communication changed?
Approving things when they can get round to approving them. I mean, I don't know how many reminders they actually get, but I would like somebody to actually do the so they can come out and tap them on the head, please approve, you know. But other than that, no, it has. I mean, it has saved time actually from writing emails, etc., and doing what I used to do. So it's time. It's saved a lot of time, basically.
Okay, so let me put you. Oh, sorry, Craig, you had something to add.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I will say, because I, as well as setting up the system, I approve quite a few invoices as well, and certainly from my point of view, it's just there doesn't seem to be any communication anymore. There doesn't need to be any communication anymore between the people approving the invoices and the finance team, because it's literally approve or reject with a reason. There's no need for all that manual. I mean, there's occasionally times that you need to discuss something. Why are you not approving why are you not approving this item, etc., etc. But generally, it's just streamlined. It's removed the need for a lot of communication, and any additional communication, it's all logged inside Docker. So I've rejected this for somebody else, etc., etc. So yeah, and as Debbie says, I mean that. It'd be hard to quantify exactly how much time has been saved, but I imagine it's quite a large figure. From what I think, if I don't know what you think about this, Debbie, but I think you and Mary split the I think is it A to M and M to Z?
Yeah, I do A to M, and then Mary does N to Z. Yeah,
I honestly think that we probably would have had to get somebody else in and split that a third way had we not done Docker, because with the amount of invoices that were now coming through, I don't think you two would have been able to cope. So I mean, if that's
not just in NetSuite, no. But the only other communication I have in Docker, which I love, is the little yellow stickers. You know, you can write on that, and then the person can actually read it at the other end. Or, you know what I mean? Which is a good thing. Yeah,
which brings me to my
love that little feature.
Final question. And you've mentioned that you like the approval flow. You've mentioned you like the sticky notes. You said you like the chat functionality, the speed of processing. So out of all of those, which one of those, Debbie, is your favorite feature?
My favorite feature, the little sticky notes. I've got everything, little sticky notes on them, sent them, you know, along with the invoice. before they approve it, etc. But if it comes back rejected, obviously they write a little note back. That's the only communication we have. But I do like those little sticky notes.
From my point of view, it was actually a feature that you launched after we first signed up. It was something we're a Microsoft-based house in terms of, you know, we use the Office 365 functionality, where we've got Exchange, Azure, all that sort of good stuff. And one of the features that you launched I think it was middle of last year, was the single sign-on, which we use a lot of third-party applications with. And you launched that, and to be honest, that's just made our lives it's just made our lives so much easier for setting up new accounts. Because obviously, you know, when you've got staff joining, leaving, etc., when you use the single sign-on, it just means when we disable a user's accounts, they've lost access to DOKKA anyway, because it's single sign-on. That's the whole point of it. So I absolutely love the fact that you launched that functionality from an administrator point of view, because I administrate all the accounts on the Microsoft system as well. So yeah, that's brilliant from my point of view.
Well, Craig and Debbie, I'm delighted that you're finding DOKKA useful. And I also want to thank you for spending a bit of time with us today, telling us about your thoughts, both before and after. And yeah, thanks very much. We really appreciate you spending time with us.
Thank you, Eric.
Well, guys, usually we do the Q&A section, but our CEO has been kind enough to answer all of the questions that we've received in real time. Actually, so just to round us off, I'd like to thank everyone for sticking with us today. As promised in the beginning, we do have an exciting special offer for you guys. So for all of you that schedule a DOKKA demo after this webinar, you'll get the first month of your DOKKA subscription for free. To claim this freebie, just use the link in the email we'll be sending you right after this webinar. Click on it to schedule a demo with our team, and we'll waive the first month of your subscription should you become a customer. And with that, thank you again, everyone, for attending, and team, thanks for your time today.